Welcome back to the Credible Dev YouTube channel. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys a bit about the Graph API and what it is, how you can use it, and some things that I've learned about it, a couple of tips to maybe make your use of it, or if you're trying to develop an application or a script that uses it, making that easier for you. Before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. I appreciate it so much. If you enjoy this content and want to see more of it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What we're looking at here is Microsoft Intune, which is endpoint.microsoft.com. It's been called a few different things over the years, but currently they're calling it Microsoft Intune, so we'll go with that. Intune is kind of it's a way to manage and configure devices, policies, things like that. Some of the things that are done in here are similar to what would have been done in SCCM in the past, minus the whole operating system deployment part and stuff like that. Some GPO stuff, if you're familiar with group policy, a lot of those things are being brought into Intune to help you manage your devices, your settings, configurations, etc. is basically what it is. And recently, I was going through the process of writing a C# application that would tap into the Graph API, which is kind of what is behind what runs this interface that you're looking at for Intune. I was trying to tap into that to collect some information because reporting and some of the screens that are in Intune are not great or is not as good as they could be. So I was creating an application that we could use in our company that would make this information that we wanted more easily attainable. So going through that process of learning the Graph API and what it is and what you can access through it, I found a couple of things that made it easier, and also ran across some frustrations as I went along the way. But first and foremost, if you're planning on getting into the Graph API, working with it, Microsoft offers SDKs for a lot of different languages and frameworks. So I'll leave some links in the description in case you're interested in checking those out. They also have a Graph Explorer where you can go in here and run sample queries, see what kind of data that you can get back. There's also some handy options in here, like if we just run one of these queries here, you can go to code snippets down here, and you have a few different language options that you can choose from, and it just shows you how this same query would be ran in that language using their Graph service client, which is part of the SDK that you can get. So this is extremely useful when you're starting out touching the Graph API and building your queries to get an idea of what you can access, how you would do it, and what it's going to look like when the data is returned to you. Another thing that you can do is, like, if I click off of this page, we'll just click on something else, and you can pull up your developer tools and go to the network tab in the developer tools, and then we'll click back on this configuration profiles tab, and of course you'll see a bunch of stuff load up here. But if we make this a little larger, you can see that there's some graph calls. So if you hover over these, you see it's going to graph.microsoft.com. So these graph calls, if we look at the response from them, for whatever reason, sometimes they don't get a response. So if you go to one to where they did get a response, you can see that this information correlates, like the display name of this one's BitLocker. We have a BitLocker one over here on the left. This is the graph query that Microsoft did in Intune to get this information that we're seeing on the screen. And you can even go further into that, like if you click on this one, and then I need to expand this out. Maybe it'll show up here. There should be an assignments one. Yeah. So here we can see the groups, like this is the group ID that this policy that correlates to, one of these particular groups here. That's what this information here is on the side. And this is the graph call that Microsoft made in order to get this information. So again, this can If you know what you're looking for in Intune, like you know where to go in Intune to find what you're looking for, you can use the developer tools and the network tab to kind of peek into the graph queries that Microsoft is making in order to get the information that they're getting. Which the more you look into this, you might run across some of the frustrations that I ran across when I was looking into it. And a lot of those result from inconsistencies, and a lot of their calls that they use in Intune are calling on the beta graph API endpoint and not the version 1.01. And in the beta endpoint, there's inconsistencies in the way that certain information is either gathered or how it's returned. So when we look at this assignments call here at the top, we can see that they call device configurations, and then this GUID that's here in the middle here is the one that is assigned to this particular BitLocker configuration profile that I clicked on. Sometimes it's in parentheses like it is here with the single quote. Other times this same kind of call, but maybe in a different area, has curly braces around it and there isn't a single quote at all. And sometimes you have things like this. So like the ID that's listed here, the part after this underscore is actually the same as getting this group ID that's further down here. If you just wanted to pull it from here, you can easily do that with some string manipulation, just get everything after the underscore basically. It would be a handy way to do that. However, in some cases, Microsoft decided not to use an underscore and they used a colon instead. So it's just things like that you think you've probably got it right and you're doing your code and everything you think is going to work fine because that's how it worked with all the other graph API endpoints that you touched. But lo and behold, you come to find out that there's some minor little difference between the way this API endpoint does it versus this other one. And it gets kind of exhausting. And there's certain endpoints that you reach out to and you just want to get like everything from that endpoint, and it'll give you everything. And there's other ones where it will only give you a subset of it. And then you have to deal with like going to the next page basically to get further information. But it's just another inconsistency because in some of the endpoints you just get it all and you don't have to deal with that. And then in others you do. So that's just something to keep in mind if you plan on messing around with this. Definitely take a look at what Microsoft's doing in Intune or whatever. If you're doing something in the Azure portal, it's kind of the same way. There's a lot of graph stuff there too. Graph stuff touches O365 things as well. So, graph's pretty powerful and you could build some really neat tools or automations or just things to make your life easier, especially if you're working in this Microsoft environment like I do. There's a lot of opportunity to automate or simplify things that you're probably doing on a daily basis. And by having the Graph API and experience with it in your tool belt, it's going to make you more valuable and it's going to make your job a lot easier. Probably your coworkers as well. So it's something you definitely want to look into if you're, in the Microsoft space, or even if you're not. It's just, it's a really fun API to work with because there's a lot of information already out there on it. There's plenty of people on Reddit and Stack Overflow and everywhere else that work with the Graph API. So if you ever need any help, it's not too difficult to find. They put a lot of this stuff on GitHub too, and you can find a lot of answers to your problems just by looking at the open and closed issues and the comments on them as well. I know that helped me a lot in my journey, so definitely want to check that out. But that's all I really have for you in this video. I just wanted to talk about the Graph API for a minute because I'd been close to it for the past couple of weeks, and while it was fresh on my mind, some of the thoughts and everything that I had on it, along with these tips, things that helped me develop the app that I was working on, I wanted to show those to you as well. So If you enjoy this kind of content, I know it was kind of rambly, it wasn't too structured, but I just wanted to get this out to you guys in case it would help you out. But if you like it, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below what you might want to see next. Those of you who, aren't just wrapped up in Linux, you also work with Microsoft stuff. If you have questions or there's things you want to see, let me know down in the comments and I'll try to make a video about it. But I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks again for watching. See ya.